And you might ask, what is my gift? What is my gift? Well, somebody shared with me a good way of finding out what your gift is. When you are walking in the fullness of the Spirit, you will begin to operate in the area of your spiritual gift, whether you recognize it or not. You want to find out what your spiritual gift is? You become obedient to your study of God's Word. You become committed to time in prayer. You be faithful in the areas of obedience that God has placed upon your heart that you know are right for you. You begin living with life with a surrendered heart. And you'll begin to naturally begin to live out in God's grace and God's gift in your life. And you know, this gift that God gave you, God made the choice of the gift that you were to have and that I was to have. It wasn't the choice. In fact, I would have made a different choice than God would have that God made for me. If God would have given me a list of choices that we find here just in Romans chapter 12, I would have checked off everything. If he would have asked me to number them from one to the end, I would have put the last one, the one that he chose to give me. I guarantee you, nobody in here had a greater fear of public speaking than I did. When I was 16 years old, I about melted in a history class because they wanted me to share a history report. And I can remember being 20, 21 years old, 22 years old in a Sunday school class and just waiting from week to week to week. All this stuff was going through my mind, just waiting for the opportunity to be able to actually say something. And I remember when the day came that I said something in that class, I spent the rest of the class trying to recover from saying it. I knew my face was red, and I knew I was all these things going through my mind. That was the stupidest thing. You never should have said that, and just wanting to just sleek out of the class as quick as I could. But God chose to take a kid like that and say, I'm going to give this gift to that kid. And then God will take that gift. In fact, I can remember when I realized that was what God was calling me to in life. That I went to argue with God. I went to the library in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I went up on the second floor, and I sat down at the table and began to argue with God that this was not the right idea. As I was just laying my head down and kind of meditating on how God was really messing up this time, God began to put in my mind an image of a bicycle. As I began to ask God to remove that image from my mind because it wasn't serving any purpose, God began to speak to my heart and say, you take a bicycle. First time you get on that bicycle, and I can remember when I did, you're going to crash, you're going to run into mailboxes, you're going to run over dogs, you're going to run into trees. But you know what? You keep working at it. You work at it hard enough, you may be riding it in a circus on your head. It's not a different bicycle. It's just somebody who's taken a gift that's given to them and invested their life in it. And God may be trying to open your life up to begin using the gift that he's given to you. Every one of us has at least one. And the problem is not that you are not capable. It's that you have to begin investing your life. One thing that I had, with all else that I did not have at that time, I had a willingness in my heart to become vulnerable for God. I had a willingness to struggle, to be stretched, and to trust God. With all the fear that's circulated around that, God took that and God began to work in my life, his gift. We are all different by grace. We're all given different gifts. And finally, it's determined by God's call. Let each exercise them accordingly. Again, gifts and grace is the same root word. And the one thing about graces they're graceful. And as God begins to work his gift out in your life, there's something great about a person who's graceful at what they do. Whether it's football, basketball, whether it's teaching, that it's a delight to watch. It's a delight to listen to. And as God begins to affect that spiritual gift in your life and you become more and more gifted by his grace to use it, it'll become more graceful in your life. And I love to watch somebody who is graceful in sharing their faith. I love to watch somebody who is teaching God's word and God has made them graceful in that. Watching somebody serve others or encourage a hurting person, and God has just perfected that gift in their life. There are so many who are not even breaking a sweat spiritually for Christ. They're trying to live their entire Christian existence within this comfort zone. God says you'll never live for me within that parameter. But you've got to step out of that. You've got to trust and begin to live by faith, and you've got to live a sacrificial life. And if you're choosing to make no effort in your Christian life is going to lead nowhere, and it might be suspect as being artificial.